Won't you give me a call? We'll ride on those waves again. And I can wait through a storm, 'cause without you it wouldn't be the same. Last night I was dreaming out loud. California sun was making my eyes dry. Can we still make it happen? It's worth a try. Oh, and I might keep on dreaming out loud. It's a beautiful life, staying under blue skies. And next year in the winter, let's give it a try. I'll keep on dreaming out loud tonight. Yeah, I'll be dreaming out loud tonight. I'll keep on dreaming out loud tonight.
So my message to you from what would I do differently going back to 20 is be bold, be willing to dare. We should fail more often. You know, making mistakes is good. It's the repetition of mistakes that's a bit silly. But if you make mistakes, you learn from them. I didn't make enough mistakes, and I did plenty. I've made a ton of mistakes. I live the way I type, fast and with lots of mistakes. And that was sort of a fun statement, but I didn't quite live up to that because I was conservative. I always got it right. I should do more. Always extend the boundaries of what's possible. Go beyond what you think is possible. Take your family along. Do something wild for your parents if you're still blessed to have them.
2003, I read this book first, right? And I was like, okay, real estate is what I want to do with my life. And then, but this wasn't an instruction manual. That's when I found this book that was, and I still have it from 2001. And this was an instruction manual. This was absolutely incredible. And it is my pleasure to introduce to the Progress Not Perfection show, the incredible PhD, Dolf De Roos.
Well, thank you so much. It's a real pleasure. Appreciate the warm welcome. Thanks, guys.
This is incredible. I mean, Dolf, having you on here is going to blow everybody's mind, right? I mean, you have written 15 books, all right? You were born in New Zealand. You were raised in Europe and all over the place, right? You went and got your PhD in engineering, right?
Right.
And then you became one of the best-known real estate investors on planet Earth.
Possibly.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's absolutely incredible. So
It is.
So, and we're speaking to an audience here that's just getting going, or they're building momentum, or they've got that momentum, and they're really changing their lives with real estate. How did you get into it? Like, how did you were like in a classroom for forever, and then all of a sudden you become a real estate investor?
Oh my gosh, that's a bit of a story. So I came from a family that never had the opportunity to go to university.
Mm-hmm.
So my parents instilled into my sister and I this notion that degrees equates to wealth. So when I finished school, without thinking, off I went to university, right? Didn't quite know what I wanted to study, didn't like the sight of blood. I still don't particularly, so that was medicine out. The thought of peering inside people's mouths all day didn't appeal to me. So,
Gross.
You know, dentistry out, I quite like the idea of law, but then you have to practice in the country in which you study, and I was already far more international then. So anyway, I did engineering. But during my first week at university, I looked at the people who had the degrees, the tutors, the lecturers, the professors, and they seemed to me to be anything but rich. They had very small cars, they lived in modest homes, and they had shabby clothes. And I thought, there's something wrong with this equation that degrees equates to wealth.
Right.
So I decided to undertake a study of the rich. I wanted to know, what do they have in common? Thinking, perhaps somewhat naively, that if I could identify 30 or 40 things that they did have in common, and then emulate them, I'd have a good shot at being rich. Good theory, right?
Yes.
The challenge was I could hardly find anything that they had in common. It wasn't age, it wasn't gender, it wasn't religion, it wasn't country of origin, it wasn't whether you're an immigrant or not, the firstborn in the family, the lastborn, or anywhere in between. I could only find two things that they had in common. And one is that almost without exception, the rich either made their money or held their wealth in real estate. And I thought, man, if that's all it is, I can do that.
Right.
So at the tender age of 17, I set out to find a property. And I found one that I thought was great. I went to the bank and gave the bank manager my spiel as to why I wanted to buy it and therefore why he should fund it. And he waited patiently. And when I finished talking, he leaned forward and he said, "Are you done?" And I thought, that's an odd question.
Right.
But I said, yeah. He said, "This is a hoax, isn't it?" He thought it was a university prank.
Right.
And I was devastated because Harry was full of sincerity trying to buy this. Anyway, fortunately, I didn't give up. I didn't say, well, clearly I'm not cut out for real estate. Let me try something else.
Right.
I went to bank after bank after bank. And eventually one of them said, "We'll take a chance on you." And I would have much
At
preferred...
17 years old.
Yeah, I would have preferred to hear, "Oh my God, this is such a good deal. I wish we'd find it. Of course we'll find it."
Right.
But I was happy with, "I'll take a chance on you." And here's the interesting thing. At the end of my first month of ownership, there were 4 units. There was an old wooden villa divided into 2 units, flats as we call them there, and then 2 more units. And the rental income from those 4 units was more than my monthly allocation of mortgage and insurance and property tax and everything. And I thought, I've made money and I haven't worked for it.
Right.
I've got to do this again. So I did it again and again. And anyway, 4 years to get an honors degree in electrical engineering. The university came to me and said, "Dolf, you're doing so well. It's only 1 more year for a master's. Why don't you do it?" And I said, "Because," and I didn't have a reason.
Yeah.
So I did it. And halfway through, they said, "You're doing so well. Why don't you switch to doing a PhD?" And I said, "Because," and again, I didn't have a reason. So I did. And the moral of that part of the story is make sure you know why you do what you do. Otherwise, you'll end up leading other people's lives.
Sure. So you get a property at 17 years old. Why even stay in college? Why not just commit all of your
Because
efforts and talents?
I
and,
agree.
And go and fail and fail and fail and build the network and do all these things, while instead of being in a classroom learning something that isn't going to make you wealthy?
With the benefit of hindsight, that's a great question.
Yeah.
But back then, I didn't know whether it would work.
Got it.
It's as if there was no crypto then, but I got into crypto and lucked out and caught a big rise, and I thought, well, this is going to work forever. I didn't know.
Right.
And this thing that my parents had told me still echoed in my head. You've got to study hard and get a degree,
Right.
So partially through fear or conformity or without thinking or not knowing, what would happen, I thought I better finish studying. So they say there are 3 kinds of student, right? Part-time, full-time, and eternal.
I love this.
I was the eternal
time. I love it.
Finished 8 years university, PhD in electrical engineering, not the easiest degree around.
No.
I went to 2 job interviews. And at the end of the second one, I was offered a job at $32,000 a year, which back then was a ton of money.
Yeah.
But the week before, I completed a real estate deal that netted me 35. And I thought,
$35,000.
$35,000. Why work for an entire year, 40 hours a week, 50 weeks of the year, turning up every morning at 8 o'clock saying, "Hey, boss, what do you want me to do today for you for 32 lousy thousand, when in 1 week you can make 35,000, take the rest of the year off, read books on the beach or buy another property, whatever." So I never took that job, and to this day, I've never had one.
Never. It's all real estate.
I've never had a boss. I don't know what it's like getting a salary.
Right.
People say to me, "What's it like never having had a job?"
Yeah.
And I say, "I don't know." "What's it like for you never having canoed to Pluto?" You don't know,
You
right?
don't know.
Yeah, so
I've tried,
I've
but
got
it doesn't.
nothing. So anyway, that's kind of the story. Sorry it's so long as to how I got into this, and I've never looked back.
That's incredible. And you started with a multifamily property?
No, it was literally a wooden villa. It was nearly a century old back then, and it had been divided by a previous owner into 2 rentable units.
Got
So
it.
Second bathroom put in, lavatories, all that. So I had 2 tenants in the house, and out the back there was a concrete block construction, a bit like 2 motel units, but it was designed as a little duplex. So I had...
How did you find the deal?
Oh, I just looked and looked until I found one where I thought the rental's quite high compared with the purchase price.
You looked in the newspaper, you were driving around in the streets, you were knocking on doors, you were...
In those days, rather than having things like Zillow online and all the other online, so we had these magazines that were real estate magazines
Got
with
it.
little photos and a description. So we'd pour
It was
through
listed.
those. It was listed, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. But that's the thing, too, that I love about real estate, guys. Any other investment that you can get into, there's usually a market for it. Like if you want to buy stock, and there are many people who do really well in the stock market, so I honor that. However, you pay the same price as anyone else. You can't buy a share of IBM or Motorola, I don't even know if they're on the market at the moment, but Apple or Microsoft. You can't buy it for 40% below what other people are paying. There's
Right.
one market. Whereas with real estate, because you've got so many different ways of selling it, some do a FSBO for sale by owner, some go through an agency, but the agents may not know the value. Sometimes they ask too much, that's why you've got to be wide awake. But sometimes they ask below what it's really worth.
Yeah.
And I think just about every property I've bought it below its true market
Yeah.
value, meaning I could have sold it the next day for more.
Right.
Right.
Well, and we talk about on the show, it's not real estate agents, it's not the seller, it's not the government, it's not the economy that determines the value of property. It's a ready, willing, and able buyer, right?
Right.
You have to have somebody that's willing to buy that property at a certain price. That's
Right.
who determines the value. You can't do that if you're trying to go and buy crypto right now.
No.
You can't just go, oh, I'm going to just offer Bitcoin, $8,000, but it's at 19.
No.
You know what I mean?
Or if you did, no one would say yes, because they'd say, no, the price today is this.
Right.
And then the other thing with all these other investments, cryptos or stocks or bonds or unit trust certificates of deposit, treasury bills, once you've bought it, you can't spend, say, an extra $10,000 and increase the value of that portfolio
love
by
it.
$100,000.
I love it.
But with real estate, you can. In fact, I find it hard to find a building where I can't do something to
Increase
it.
the value.
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw your, it's an ebook, right? 101 ways
Well,
to
it's a
increase
physical
value.
book. It was published by Time Life. And it's the longest title on Amazon now. It's called 101 Ways to Massively Increase the Value of Your Real Estate Without Spending Much Money.
That's it?
That's it.
Do you have a short name for it?
Oh, I call it 101 Ways.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. The cheapest idea is, I think, 69 cents. Because if you've got a room in a house, be it a rental property, you're trying to sell it, and it's got a 40-watt light bulb, and you replace it with a 150-watt light bulb, so 69 cents, the room will seem bigger, brighter,
Yep.
cleaner, and fresher. And if you're really cheap, that 40-watt light bulb that you took out, it still works. You
Oh,
can
yeah.
use it somewhere
Yeah,
else.
put it
No, I'm
in-
kidding.
Yeah.
And then
Don't throw it away.
the biggest value we've increased a property by, it only cost $20, but it increased the value by $2 million.
What?
And I know that some of your viewers are going to say, okay, we
gotta
get it
hear
with
that
the light
one.
bulb. Or, you paint a house for $5,000, it increases the
You
value
talk
by
about a
10 or
carport a
15.
lot.
A carport, spend $1,000 making a carport, the value might go up by 10. But how do you turn $20 into $2 million?
Yeah.
Now I've lost your audience's confidence, right? But let me explain.
Not this
how so-
audience.
Okay, well, let me explain it.
We
Well,
have
I'm
some
hopeful you're
optimistic
doubtful.
people here. I'm
Okay,
telling you.
But
Yeah.
be
Tenaciously
cautious.
optimistic.
Yeah.
Oh, well, good. So the $20 was spent on a bucket of white paint and a brush. That's easy. To understand the $2 million, I've got to explain where it was. It was in Jakarta, which is the capital of Indonesia.
Yeah.
It's known as the most congested city on this planet. So you measure how far it is to get somewhere, not in terms of miles or kilometers, but hours to get there. So the CBD, the Central Business District, is about a 45-minute drive from Soekarno-Hatta Airport, the main international airport. That's assuming there's no traffic. Because of traffic, it can take anywhere from 3 to 6 hours.
Yeah.
So if a director of a company in that building has a 9 a.m. board meeting, he can't book a 2 p.m. flight because he may not make it.
Right.
So with my bucket of white paint and brush, I went onto the roof of the building. It had a flat concrete roof and painted a big white circle. And then in the middle, painted the letter H. And now, full disclosure, we had to get Civil Aviation Authority approval, which is the equivalent of the FAA down there, and that involves a few dinners with promises of helicopter rides and all that sort of thing. But with that all in place, the commute to the airport was 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So down there they have rupiah, about 14,500 rupiah to the dollar, and they have square meters instead of square feet. But converted from rupiah per square meter to dollars per square foot, it was about $14 a foot rental. And because of the helipad, the rental went to $16 a foot. A $2 lift, right? Half the tenants knew they would never use it, but they had bragging rights, so it was worth it, and the other half thought they might use it. So the building had about 100,000 rentable square feet of space. So 100,000 feet times $2 a foot lift is a $200,000 a year increase in rental. Market cap rates were around 10%. 10% into the 200 is 2 million lift. These things are possible, and if you don't believe that, if you think, well, that's a bit strange, then you'll never find things like that.
Right.
And you probably won't ever build a carport for $1,000 and increase the value by $10,000, get a loan from the bank for $7,000, use $1,000 to pay off the carport, and put $6,000 of tax-free money in your pocket. And I know the naysayers are saying, oh, but now we have a mortgage of $7,000 we're paying money. Yes, but we get extra rental income because of the carport.
That's it.
So it all balances out. So yeah, just open your mind to possibilities. That's what I love about real estate. You're limited only by your creativity.
And I love that because you really get into the psychology of wealth. I mean, not only, and I love it because you direct it at what I love the most, which is real estate. So, I mean, first of all, you have a saying that I've said for years, and I thought the line was the deal of a lifetime comes around once a week. It's actually the deal of a decade comes around once a week.
Right.
And it's the absolute truth.
It's true.
And if you put that, but that's a psychological thing, isn't it?
Well,
Don't
it
you
is.
have to be looking for things to be able to find it? Don't you have to be able to be like, this isn't too good to be true. This is expected.
Well, I mean, I'm just thinking for the first time we're touching on a sensitive thing because many people say you have to believe it and then you'll experience it. And some believe it and then maybe never experience it. But when it comes to real estate, if you believe that the deal of the decade does come along about once a week, then you'll be motivated to go out and look, and I believe you will find it. Whereas if you think, no, that's not true, by definition, the deal of the decade comes along exactly once every 10 years. So when you found a great deal, I can stop looking for 9.9 years because you found this decade.
Right.
Then you won't look. And your reality that it doesn't happen becomes true.
Right.
And in that way, we do create our own reality.
So why do some people believe that they can go out and find it and not find it? Are they just not taking action? Are they not following it? Are they just staying within their mindset and they're getting all the affirmations that they need, but it's not doing anything?
I can only conject, but I have had one person who said it doesn't happen to me, so I spent a couple of weeks looking with him, and we found one.
Right.
And his conclusion, well, it's because you're here.
Right.
But I don't know the answer, but I wonder, did he really look? Did he delude himself that he was looking? I have another rule. It's in here. You may recall it, 100-10-3-1.
Listen,
Yeah.
Dolf.
Oh,
It's written right here.
I didn't even see that.
It's written right
So
here.
very briefly, you
This
have to
is
look at 100 properties to find 10 worthy of putting offers in on. I know never end a sentence on a preposition, but anyway. If you put offers in on 10 properties, do you have 10 offers accepted? No, because if you did, you're offering too much. So, you might only get 3 accepted. Can you buy 3? No, we need to finance them. Can't you pay cash? No, because if you had enough cash to buy those 3, you should be offering money on bigger properties,
Yep.
right? So maybe only 1 works. So that's the 100-10-3-1 rule. And people hear that and they think, I can do that. So the next weekend they go out and they look at 12 properties. And they think, yeah, I'm doing well. And the weekend after that, they look at 13. And then they get the calculator out and they say 12 plus 13. Man, I'm a quarter of the way through. I'm nearly
Almost
there.
there, yeah.
And the next weekend, it's a big football game on, and they can't no-show because their friends will think they're wusses. And so they go to that. The weekend after that, Cousin Sue's getting married, and they have to attend that.
Sure.
And the weekend after that, it's raining. And Dolf never said anything about looking in the rain. And then they say this 100-10-3-1 rule. It's baloney. It doesn't
Right.
work. And they've only looked at 25.
Yeah.
So you've got to follow through. You've got to do the work. But I'm telling you, everyone, the effort that you put into real estate is rewarded so handsomely compared with any other activity that I've experienced. And I have a bit of experience in this because I get seduced into doing other things all the time.
I bet.
And my summary and conclusion is I make my money in real estate and I lose some of it, hopefully not all of it, in other ventures that I
things.
think are just going to be sensationally great.
Right. I love it. Well, no, I wrote it down here because I think you planted this seed when I was young. I mean, in early 20s, and it really filtered down to now. We go after off-market opportunities, right? We see an ugly property on the street. We get the owner's information. We call them up and ask them, when do you plan on selling this property, right?
Right.
And the numbers are 200 conversations to 20 people that would consider an offer to 1 closing, to
Wow.
actually making a fee of an average of $15,000. And this
Okay.
is wholesale. This
Right.
isn't buying it. This isn't renting it. This isn't flipping it. This is
Just
this
wholesaling
is
it, yeah.
just taking that property, putting it under contract, selling that contract to somebody else. And that's the numbers that it works out. What you're talking about with the 110.31, that's more on-market properties that you can
Right.
see that they already want to sell. So you're looking at 100 of them. You're finding the 10 best. You're having these conversations with the agents.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And then from there, you put true offers in on 3 that seem like they're reasonable, and one of them you close one of them.
Right.
Awesome.
Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's a numbers game.
Yeah.
You just crank the handle.
Yeah.
I'd go so far as to say it gets pretty boring.
Sure.
You know, you can learn, this is a very interesting point. You can learn probably most of what you need to learn to do wholesaling or real estate investing, long-term rentals, whatever, short-term rentals, in a couple of weekends. Not everything you need, a bit of experience helps, but you can learn the bulk of it. There are
Sure.
only about a dozen words you need to learn.
Right.
Equity, collateral, if you don't know the difference, you're going to have a few problems, but they're pretty easy to learn, right?
Mm-hmm.
Compare that with 8 years to get a degree in electrical engineering. And by the way, everything I learned has been made redundant by new technology. That's a scary
Right.
thought. Whereas what you would have learned, you know, a century ago, whenever I did that degree, in real estate, it's still the same. Collateral is still collateral.
Oh, always will be.
Yeah, there's not an equivalent where they've replaced the valves, as in valve radio style valves, with transistors and then integrated circuits and then, you know, very large scale integrated circuits and application specific. No, it's still collateral.
Still.
And equity is still equity. And that building that you had 50 years ago, it is still there generating rental income. The tenant would have changed. Very interestingly, I used to have a video program called Discussions with Dolf. It's not a plug for it because we don't have it right now. And every Tuesday, wherever I was in the world, I'd shoot this video. And I had to build my own video streaming server because there was no video streaming service. And so people would subscribe $50 a month. They'd get 4 videos, sometimes 5 if there were 5 Tuesdays in a month. And I had 1,000 subscribers. You can do the math. That's $50,000 a month. Back then, you could live off that, right? And people could see what my current thoughts were on real estate, and I'd answer questions that were emailed to me. And then an event happened where my subscriber base went from over 1,000 to 0 in about 6 months. And that event was the introduction to the world of YouTube.
Right.
Why pay me $50 a month for 4 mere videos? We can get a lifetime edit every day on YouTube.
Sure.
But I remember doing one in Tokyo. It was in the suburb of Akihabara, which is known as Electronic City. And I was on a corner which had visually an interesting field of view. Zebra crossings, overhead railway lines, the converging lines were just fantastic. So I shot it there. And next to me, there was a store that sold Walkman. Mm-hmm. You remember what a Walkman is, right? Cassette tapes. But that's how we listened to music in those days. And if you're on a trip, you could only take 8 or 10, or if you had a big bag, 20 cassettes. But that was it. You listened to them over and over. And then I was there again about 10 years later, and I did another video from the same corner. I thought it was fun to do it here. And there were no Walkman anymore. They'd been replaced with CD players. They had CD Discman, they were called. And then we had MP3 players. And I was there just before COVID hit, and I thought, I'll do a third one here. It was kind of fun, the sequence. And there was now an anime store, a store that sells like Japanese cartoon anime stuff.
Yep.
And it occurred to me that the owner of the Walkman store probably wasn't the one selling the anime. He went out of business because the demand for Walkman went down. They had WoW and Flutter and, you know, all kinds of other things that was wrong with them. But the owner of the premises, he could lease out either to a Walkman company or an MP3 company or an anime company. So he had the least effort.
Yeah.
He didn't have to do all this design and engineering work to make the Walkman and all that. Anyway, just interesting observation.
Well, as long as he held it. As long as the owner of that property held it that whole time, which is one thing I want to point out. I want to read something that you wrote in this book here. By the way, Dolf has 15 books, incredible books. But in your commercial book here, you talk about never selling.
Correct.
Which is controversial because we've all been taught 4 green houses equals 1 red hotel.
Yes, it does.
Right? Go
Yes.
and buy these single-family houses, cut your
Yes.
teeth, get used to it, and then
Yes.
go buy 1 big building.
Yes, and
right?
then when they go up in value, refinance the houses, keep them, and use the money to buy the hotel.
Okay. My constant and frequent encouragement and even admonishing to real estate investors never to sell often seems to fall on either deaf ears or disbelieving ears. For the most part, these investors are seduced by the temptation of a quick profit. It is just one more example of how people tend to think in the short term rather than the long term. Awesome.
It's true. I have not found a single person who, when I say, is there anything you've sold that you're happy you sold, that they said yes. And most people live long enough to regret selling. They bought a property for $216,000 back in the year dot, depending on how old you are, might be, 2014 or 1997 or 1970. And it went up to $600,000. They thought, we're killing it. Do you know the profit I've got here? I'm going to sell it and I'm going to buy a bigger building. And then inevitably, 3, 4, 10 years later, they see it on the market at 2.1 million or 3, and they say, oh my gosh, if only I'd kept it.
Well, watching your YouTube yesterday, you said, look at any 10-year period in the market, and there's going to be an increase in value. There's not going to be a significant decrease. And I was
Right.
like, well, we live in Phoenix.
Right.
Like, we saw huge decreases.
60%.
So I looked at 2001 versus 2011.
Right.
Still, 2001 were lower than 2011.
Yes.
Isn't that crazy?
It's astounding. It's astounding.
I mean, not by much. Let's be honest. I mean, it went real fast, but it was still, you're not losing money.
So on average, properties came down about 60% in
Right.
Phoenix. I've got properties in the Garfield Historic District that went down 80%.
Oh, yeah.
So I bought them for $175,000, and on Zillow they were like $36,000.
Now they're
Devastating.
Now they're 500.
Well, not quite, but 348,000. Just hang on. If you can hang on, you'll tend to. And the interesting thing is when those property values came down, rents came down too, but not by nearly as much.
Right.
At one stage, we had 90,000 homes in foreclosure here. And that's horrible for the people in foreclosure.
Yeah.
But when those people went into foreclosure, they didn't all sleep on park benches.
Right.
They were in rental accommodation.
Yeah.
So the demand for rentals was extraordinarily high, which is why rents didn't come down.
What do you think about now versus then? Because a lot of people, a lot of people have gotten into real estate in the last few years. It's been Yahoo, right? It's
Right.
been let's go.
Right.
And now things are getting wiggly. All of a
Right.
sudden, things are not, going crazy.
I
You know
know.
what I mean?
So
do
they-
you feel like this is the same as 2008? I mean, should we be
No.
like just prepared for an inevitable crash?
I'm indifferent. I'm like a Buddhist when it comes to the market because I just accept what it is.
Sure.
Because I know that as long as I'm not forced to sell, and we could all be forced to sell if prices come down enough. If we lose tenants, we don't have money to pay the mortgages, then we're in trouble.
Right.
I have a lot of debt. I always say some people don't sleep well at night if they have too much debt. I don't sleep well at night if I have too little debt.
Right.
It's time to refinance something. So there is a risk. But other than that, I don't mind if property values come down a lot because I know there'll be buying opportunities and
Sure.
flipping opportunities and renovating opportunities, and eventually they'll go back up. But more importantly, I don't think this is a repeat of 2008 for a number of fundamental reasons. Back then, we had a surplus of housing stock in the country. When there's more supply than demand, then the laws of supply and demand dictate that prices will come down. It was inevitable. Right now, there's a chronic shortage of housing stock in this
There is.
country. We still have a surplus of births over deaths. We've got a surplus of immigration over immigration. Currently, there's a 4.1 million unit housing shortage in this country. That means that demand is going to stay high. Will it come off the top? Of course. 6 months ago, you put a house on the market, there'd be 30 offers for more than the asking price in the first day.
Right.
Right, and the days on market average 16 or something. Now that's lengthened to over 90, and we're not getting nearly as many offers, and prices are coming off the top. But don't forget, they've come up about 43%
Oh, I know.
in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
And when they come down 10%, all the doomsdayers and the anti-real estate people who want you to go
I
into-
told you so. Don't get into real estate.
Don't get into real estate. Buy some of the things that we earn a lot of commission from. We haven't yet figured out how to make commission if you buy real estate, but buy some of the things that we can.
Right.
Because look, it's come down 8%. Isn't
Yeah.
that disgusting?
Yeah.
No, after 43% rise, we've got a lot of room there to bounce around it.
Well, the most equity ever.
Right.
The most equity in the market ever, which is
Right.
absolutely incredible. So, Dolph, I want to transition here. I'm going to open
Okay.
this up to the audience. We've got 120 people live with us. And so, first of all, I'm Brent Daniels, Mr. TTP, Mr. Talk to People, joined by Rafael Cortez, Mike Mahoney. We are so excited to be here with Dolph, and we're here for 3 reasons. Number one, we want to celebrate your success. If you've closed a deal, if you've locked up a deal, if you talk to a property owner for the first time, I want to know about it. We want to ring this victory bell and really celebrate you and give you the recognition you deserve because you are going out there and actually taking action, and that is different than 99% of the people out there, okay? Number 2 is I want you to squad up in the comments section. I want you to consider this like a networking event where you are connecting. So make sure you let everybody know where you live and put your contact info, whatever you're comfortable with, so that you can find like-minded people, because the fact is you're going to talk to friends and family and loved ones, and you're going to be excited about real estate, and they're going to look at you and like you're speaking a different language, okay? So be around people that are obsessed with this business, and it'll go a lot faster for you. And the third part is we are here to answer your questions. So guys, we have Dolf here for another 32 minutes. He has to run at the top of the hour because he has to go lock up some massive deals here in Phoenix and get to an appointment. So make sure that you slide in your questions, anything that you have for Dolf. If you've been following him since the early 2000s and you've always wanted to ask him a question, this is your opportunity. And we get to 150 likes. I want you to smash that like button. Dolf is going to sign this book. We're going to send it to you, and we're going to pick somebody. Alejandro, you on it? Yep, Alejandro's on it. Okay, good. We're going to send this to you. So 150 likes. We'll start here with World Turners. Imagine my surprise when I get out of a business planning meeting just in time to see 2 of my favorite real estate guys live right now on the same show.
That is cool.
How about that? There we go.
They might be referring to
it's probably Mike and Raphael. Yeah, that's it. That's awesome. And by the way, Matt, do you mind putting up Dolph's 7 benefits of owning real estate just on the background, just so that we can subconsciously slam this into everybody's minds? All right. Jonathan, Dolf De Roos is responsible for me getting bitten by the real estate bug ever since I read his book, which is one of the first I read. I never forget. The Deal of Lifetime comes around once a week. That's it.
That is so cool. Well, Jonathan, thank you so much for your feedback. Appreciate it very much. And this is what inspires me, and it's the feedback I get by emails and by whatever comments as they come through like this. It made it all worthwhile.
And guys, make sure that you follow Dolf on TikTok. This guy is crushing it on TikTok. He to his surprise.
My surprise, yeah.
He's absolutely doing fantastic, and he's got an incredible YouTube channel as well. Dolf, we've got your 7 benefits of owning real estate there behind us.
Oh, yes, cool.
That will flash to throughout the show. But yeah, there you go, guys. Appreciation, cash flow, leverage control, tax benefits, long-term security, passive investment, and protect against inflation. Ralph, he is going ham. Please ask him to dig into wholesaling specifically and building the war chest of cash. He just gave keys to the kingdom on being wealthy. So if you were starting out now, getting going and going after these properties, and you don't have any capital as a down payment, and you don't have you haven't built the skills of raising funds, and you have to go out there and find a deal and sell a deal, what would your just off the top, and I know that this is like you're at this level and wholesaling's here, but how would you go about finding a discounted property?
Well, firstly, I wouldn't be like a sniper where you have just one kind of weapon and you aim it very accurately at one very narrow range of things. I would spend as many of my waking hours as I could in this real estate game and start looking. By that I mean when you drive to wherever you're going, take a different route from what you normally do, because you might see a FSBO sign, a for sale by owner sign. And the great thing about a for sale by owner sign, as opposed to something on the MLS, a multi-listing service, or Zillow, or anywhere else, is that not many people get to see it. And if most people take the direct route to their work or wherever they're going, they won't see it either. So you've got an advantage there. Talk with other people about real estate. When you do that, when you're at your dentist, and the dentist assistant says, oh, and what do you do? Instead of saying, well, not much. Say, I'm a real estate investor. By the way, if you ever find a property or hear of someone who wants to sell, I'm in the market.
That's it.
Is that dental assistant going to call you the next day and say, I've just found $1 million of equity waiting for you to pick it up? Probably not. No. But if you do that to 20 people, don't be surprised if within the next 6 months, one of them calls you and says, are you still into real estate? Well, yeah. My neighbor, this has happened. They're selling it. I think it's crazy cheap. I don't want to buy it. Come and have. You'll get leads like that. So talk with people, join groups, watch this show every week.
People.
Yeah, talk to people. Yeah, talk to people. Exactly. Because, once you're in the game, you'll learn more. But then more specifically, if you're after a wholesale property, you've got the formula down pat. You have to make it's a numbers game. Life is a numbers game. If you're in the dating game, it's a numbers game. You can't date 3 people and say, all right, I guess I'll choose this one. And then it doesn't work out, and you say, the
That's
people are
it.
horrible. This
done.
whole dating thing doesn't work. Marriage, no. You've got to, don't take it the wrong way,
Yeah.
but it's a number game. So wholesaling, you've got to talk with a lot of people. And your magic number is you talk with 200
That's
to
it.
end up doing one.
200 distressed property owners, whether that be pre-foreclosures, tax defaults, whether they have code violations on their property, just driving for dollars, all of these, whether they be tired landlords, people that have owned these properties for a long time, don't upgrade them, they just
Right.
kind of let them go because they truly make it a passive investment, don't invest back into those properties, which we find all the time. It's 200 of those conversations
Right.
to get one deal.
And you need perseverance for that.
That's
and it's a bit boring because you're doing the same thing all the time. But look, I once left Phoenix here because I had an appointment cancelled on me in the afternoon. And I flew to Vegas. It's only 37 minutes in the air. And I came back just at closing time, 5 o'clock, and my staff were all there. And they said, "Where did you go?" And I said, "I went to Vegas." And they said, "Well, do you gamble?" I said, "No, the real jackpots are in the suburbs."
Yeah.
What I did is I bought a house, but here's the interesting thing. I used none of my own money, and it was cash flow positive.
How?
And my staff, and we're in the game of investing in real estate and teaching real estate,
Right.
My staff looked at me and said, "You can't do that." And I thought, if my staff think it's not possible, I bet the rest of the world doesn't either. So I made a public announcement there and then, well, the next day, that I was going to buy one house a week for an entire year using none of my own money and all
Right.
cash flow positive. 3 months in, I wish I'd never said that because I'd bought exactly 2 houses and I thought, I'm not going to have egg on my face, I'm going to have an entire omelette, But then I got into the swing of things, and it's doing exactly what
Yeah.
you do. How do you find distressed properties? So there's an NOD, a notice of default in America. By the way, foreclosures are uniquely American. It's not that they don't have them overseas, but they're called redemption sales or mortgagee sales. So if you want to operate overseas, just expand the versions of English that you're willing to deal with. Before a bank can put a property into foreclosure, they have to issue a public notice. It's called a notice of default. So every day in the Las Vegas legal daily news, in addition to births, deaths, and marriages, and company dissolutions, and you name it, judgments, summary defaults, they've got NODs. So there's a list of properties that in 90 days' time are going to go into foreclosure.
Right.
So you can knock on the doors of these people, and you don't say, "Hey, you're losing my buy, and what's the that doesn't go down well."
No.
You don't even say, "I hear you're in trouble."
No.
What I would say is, "Hey, I understand your house is in trouble. If I could help, how would that look?"
I love that.
And sometimes
I
they'd
love
say,
that.
"No, it's not in trouble," and they'd slam the door in your face, and then 90 days later, you see it went into foreclosure. But more often than not, they'd say, "Yeah, oh, my girlfriend left me, and I just want to go back home to Minnesota, but now I owe the bank $5,000, and I don't know how I can get out of it." And I said, "Well, if I could help you, how would that look?" And they said, "Well, if you pay me the $5,000 that I owe the bank, I'm willing to quit claim deed you the property. I just want to get out of here. I'm underwater. I want to get out."
Yeah. That's how you did it.
Well, some of your viewers might be saying, "Hang on a minute, $5,000 you have to pay." Didn't I say with none of my
None
own
down.
money?
Yeah.
Well, so we have to continue the story here because I'd say, okay, by the way, most mortgages have a due on sale clause where if the property is sold, you have to pay back the mortgage. So I'd say to the owner, I said, "Okay, I'm willing to do that, but would you mind staying on the mortgage for a couple of years?" And I said, "Stay on the mortgage? I can't afford it now." Why? And I said, "No, I'll pay the mortgage." "Well, how do I know you'll pay it?" So, "Well, I'm paying $5,000 to the bank. If I don't pay the mortgage, you'll lose your house, but I'll lose my $5,000. And he, "Well, that makes sense, but why would you do that?" I said, "Well, that way I don't need to apply for a mortgage, so I save 3 or 4 weeks. I don't pay the $500 application fee, and as an investment property, I'd have to put up 20% in cash, whereas this way I don't need to."
Right.
So then I go to the bank, and I say, "I understand you have a client, Fred and Sally Smith, whatever, and they're a bit behind in their mortgage." And he'd look it up and say, "Oh, yes, they owe us $5,000. I say, "Well, I'm thinking of paying off their mortgage for them." "Oh, really?" They'd say, "Do you want a tea or a coffee?" And I'd say, "No, I'm just as thirsty as I was before I told you I'm thinking of paying off their mortgage." No, I wouldn't. But anyway. And he'd say, "Wow, why would you do that?" I said, "Well, they're friends of mine, but I don't just want to give them the money. To protect myself, I want them to quit claim deed me the property." And I
Yeah.
said, "Well, that makes sense." I said, "But I don't want you to invoke the due on sale clause." "Oh, you're paying off that?" "No, of course, here." And he gives it in writing that he won't. So I'm covered there, right?
Yeah.
The next week, I'd go back to the bank. I'd say, "I've got some more friends. This time it's Judith and Harry Tomlinson. And he'd say, let me guess, no due on sale close. I said, you got it. I'd be there the following week with a third couple, and guess what would happen then? He would call me. He says, I think I know what's going on here. I've got some more friends for you.
Yeah.
Right, so in the end, I would do 3 or 4 properties a day. I end up buying my 52nd home at the end of 9 months, not even 12 months. So it's a long-winded
Incredible.
answer to your question, how
Incredible.
would you go about finding? But that's just one way of doing it. Look at the NODs, the notices of default.
So would you take them over like subject to? Subject to the existing financing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, they'd stay on the mortgage,
Yeah.
and then 2 years later, when the property value has gone up, I'd invoke some of the rules from the 101 Ways
Yep.
book. I would refinance, I would pay them out, and they say, oh my gosh, I can't believe you've done this. And their credit is now good,
Right.
because if
You're
I
making
just
the
take it,
payments.
they would have had
Yeah.
a big black X by then. And so everyone wins. The bank wins, the previous owner wins, my new tenant wins. Oh, and to cover the $5,000, I would sell it on a lease option
Yeah.
basis. So I'd have a tenant in there with the option to buy it at a fixed price in the future. Guess what I charge for the option fee?
$5,000. There
So
it is.
no money going in, yeah.
Love it. Yeah, all hundreds giving us the. Let's get. We got a lot of questions.
Okay,
for you.
let's
We got
go,
a lot
let's
of
go.
questions. Robert, Dolf taught us to expect to look at 100 deals. We did that and found over 10 and wholesaled 7. It was awesome. We made millions in 5 years.
that is
Come on, Robert.
Yay! Woo! But don't thank us. Give us part of the millions.
Hey, come on.
Come on, Robert.
Come on, Robert. Andrew, hi, Dolph. What has made the biggest difference among your successful investments?
I think the realization that whatever property you buy, you can do things to it to massively increase its value. I'm blown away by how you can do that. Look at what you guys have done here in
Yeah.
the studio. Let me guess, it was a horrible old decrepit building when you got
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah.
But it didn't take that much.
No.
It took some capital, but
Yeah.
you've transformed it. You've
Yeah.
massively increased the value. It's a perfect, we don't need to go far to find an example of how you can increase value.
I'm looking at a property right now, literally. I was negotiating it when you walked in. It's 20,000 square foot lot in Central Phoenix, Central and Camelback.
Okay.
It's got 3 individual properties on it, but it's zoned R3, so you can
Okay.
build way more on there.
Right.
And so I'm negotiating that deal right now, keep it for a little bit, and then at someday develop it out and get the highest and best use from it. Right?
Absolutely. And if you can get a zone change from R3 to something that incorporates light commercial, the value goes up
It goes
again.
bananas.
Just
Yeah,
with the zone
bananas.
change.
Yep.
And by the way, if you sit down on a council meeting and hear about a zone change coming along and you buy property, it's not insider trading. I love it.
I know, right?
Right.
I love it.
All right.
What do we got?
So
There we go. Curtis, does Dolph mostly buy and hold, or does he explore other strategies?
mostly buy and hold. You heard it before. It's a policy of never sell. I did have to change that rule, I have to confess.
Sure.
From never sell to seldom sell, because sometimes there are extenuating circumstances under which it just makes sense to sell.
Yeah.
But for the most part, hang on to everything.
Awesome.
You know.
There you go. So, Samuel, hey Dolph, I am 19 and did my first deal at 17 when I
That's
discovered
good.
the both,
Well done.
both of you. I made cash, not income, and wanted to start acquiring with no credit and little to no down. What's your advice? Thanks again.
Just keep doing what you're doing. You got off to a great start. I've had a bank manager come to me at 68 who asked for an appointment. I said, I don't take appointments. He said, come on, all those mortgages, let me see you for an hour. And he said, I think I know what you're doing. Will you teach me how? And he was starting at 68. You started at 17, 19 now. Keep doing what you're doing. When you find properties that are either below value or you can do simple things to them to increase the value, you do those things, you get a new appraisal, you go to the bank, I'm making up numbers now, but you're buying it for 300, the appraisal's for 500. Most banks will give you, 75%, whatever, and you'll get the 300 you need. So you don't need any money to go into it. So they'll cover the purchase price. You just have to be creative. Keep at it, keep looking, try and hang on to as many as you can. We all need to earn cash. We have businesses to earn cash, and then we invest it in real estate. So wholesaling is great for earning the cash.
Right.
But what I would not recommend doing is you spend the next 40 years wholesaling and selling every one of them. Because if you just keep 1 in every 10 deals, or even 1 in 20, but preferably 1 in 5, in 40 years' time, you'll be so grateful that you hung on to some of them.
Let me ask you this, and this is something that I see as a big issue in our industry, is people don't understand location.
Right.
They buy properties because they can in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
Then it
Because
turns
it's
into a
cheap.
nightmare,
You're right.
and it's cheap. And then all of a sudden, those properties get destroyed,
Right.
and now we're buying them at pennies on the dollar.
Right.
Right. So can
Right.
you talk a little bit before we get into the just
Well, just
real
very
quick,
quickly.
Yes.
So a lot of people say, Dolph, you obviously invest in Phoenix because you live there, and things are never what they seem.
Right.
It's the other way around. I choose to live in Phoenix because I want to invest here. Because for 50 years straight, Phoenix has been the number one in this country for growth, absolute growth, relative growth, population growth, capital value growth. It vies for that position, by the way, with Las Vegas and Nevada. And as a result, we've had massive, so we are way above. So just buying in Phoenix at random, you'll probably do better than the national average, but there are suburbs in Phoenix that do better than others.
Right.
Not being discriminatory about them or anything, but Scottsdale tends to do better than Buckeye, and Paradise Valley does better than Levine, and all that sort of thing. So you can choose the suburb. You can choose clusters of streets within suburbs, et cetera, et cetera. Just beat the average on location. That's the first thing.
What I suggest. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, it's just, and I think you're going. That's a great, because
Yep.
we get this all the time, right? Is there just big thumb rules? Good school districts. We say that all the time. Buy in a good school district.
Right.
But we've heard people say buy near a Whole Foods. Buy things like that. Is there 2 or 3 big thumb rules, simple, that can guide these folks in picking up rental residential property?
They all help, but it's very seldom that you'll find the best school district and buy a Whole Foods and not too close to a gas station for the fumes, or not too far away so that you burn a lot of gas to fill up with gas. And at the end of the day, the deal has to make sense. And instead of choosing between this great deal and that almost as good, buy both of them. So it's a numbers game again. Yeah.
Do you have any specific criteria on how you choose the properties or the deals that you actually take down? I mean, you mentioned location, but is there anything else that you look at?
Oh, there are many things. So I'll want to know what the cash flow is like. So cash on cash returns are very important. And it's also important not just to look at the ROI, the return on investment, whether it's the rental income divided by the purchase price or the rental income less expenses divided by the purchase price. Then you can take depreciation into account, because, by the way, real estate is the only business I know where you can make a cash flow profit and still legally pay no tax, because the government allows us to depreciate it. And I know we can depreciate cars and computers, but they go down in value. They allow us to depreciate real estate, even though the government's not so silly as to think it goes down in value. So you've just got to keep in mind all these aspects. So I want the cash flow to be good. I want the internal rate of return to be good. If you don't know what an internal rate is, spend half an hour figuring it out. It's pretty easy. But it combines the cash flow return with the increase in capital value, because that enables you to refinance. I like the renovations to be relatively simple. If you have to redo the foundations, that's a big job. If you have to fix a leaking roof, I mean, we could do it ourselves. It's kind of fun doing it. It's just not a good use of our time, so get someone else to do it. But yeah, I'd rather do 5 deals that are 80% where I'd love them to be than one deal that's 100%, because I still haven't found that 100% deal.
Yeah.
Perfection doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Fire!
Love it. Jessica asked, do you invest in other countries? If so, what is your favorite?
Well, I wouldn't recommend that once you've bought your first property, you go overseas to invest. But once you've got, a 10 under your belt, I think it's very smart. For instance, I can give you some reasons. And by the way, I love it here in America. I have multiple passports. I live here by choice. So I don't want you to misinterpret what I'm going to say next. But there are countries on this planet that don't have a capital gains tax. Where I'm from, New Zealand, there is no capital gains tax. It's not on the statutes. Now, there are now rules that if you own it for less than a certain time, they try and grab you. But there's no such thing technically as a capital gains tax. There are other countries where you've got enormous benefits. Plus, if you own property in France, I'm not recommending France, I'm using that as an example because they've got high property taxes here. But if you were to own a piece of real estate in France, would you or would you not be allowed to go there once a year to check on your property managers and to make sure everything's okay, which means it's an expense incurred in generating taxable income, which means your trip to France becomes tax deductible legally. That's kind of an advantage. Plus, some of us don't like to be stuck in one place. I love the thrill of different languages and different environments and different architecture and different food and all that. Not many Americans are into that. We have, ironically, the lowest uptake of passports in the Western world, and apparently only 5% of passport holders use them in any given year. But, if you don't want to, cool. But if you do, I love it. I love going to somewhere where I've never been before.
Sure.
And I can't resist stopping at a real estate window and trying to figure out what are the returns, and some of them are really lousy. I've lived in Belgium for 7 years, and very few people own investment real
Right.
estate there because it's not very lucrative. But I've helped lots of Belgians invest here in America. By the way, one thing that I love here is we can, as you all know, we can fix our interest rates for 30 years and even 40 years. And other than Canada, I don't think there's another country that does that. So that's a big plus of investing here. So weird answer, but yes, if you love it, do it. But don't do it because you think you ought to. You ought to buy more real estate and then choose where you do it based on where you like to be.
Guys, hit that like button. If you're just joining us now, hit it again. If you've already hit it, hit that like button. We're going to give away a signed copy of this incredible book from Dolf. And here we go. Top home buyers. Hi, Dolf. What advice would you give a new investor going through their first economic slowdown?
Well, I'm happy that you said your first economic slowdown, because if you said, what advice would you give a new investor going through doomsday and a recession to beat all recessions and we're all going to be dead within 3 milliseconds? That's
Which
more
some
of-
people think.
They do. Yeah. But the things don't go up linearly and monotonically, as the mathematicians would say. It goes in fits and starts. And you've just got to accept that this will be, in your young so far life, the first of many. And it's an opportunity to buy even more, because I can't think of any reason why property values are going to come down. And they certainly won't go down as much as they did in 2008, percentage. But why they'll just keep on going down, and then it'll come to a grinding halt. And anyone who owns property is going to be lined up and shot. It's not going to happen. We're going to look back in 10 years and, oh my gosh, I could have bought that then. I had a house available to me that I could have bought in the Garfield district for $6,000.
Oh,
I know.
I know.
And even I got cold feet because I'd had all these properties go down by 80% in that area.
Yeah.
I thought, this is, why would I add to my doomsday calamity prognosis of what's going to happen? And looking back, you know, how bizarre. And the older you get, and many of you, blissfully for you, aren't in this position, but the older you get, the more you realize this is true. Like, my parents bought a house back in 1968. It was in New Zealand when we started pounds, shillings, and pence. It was £2,500. Pardon me. We since converted to dollars, and it was a 2-to-1, so it was for $5,000. In 1968, they sold it in 1978 for $32,000. The profit they made was more than my dad earned in that decade with a job. Imagine if he didn't have to have that job and just bought a second house. So they sold it for $32,000. Pretty good, right?
Incredible.
But if you look it up online
What's it now? Yeah, that's it.
875.
No.
If they just hung on to it, it would have been worth more than 3/4 for no extra. And in addition to the 875 value, they would have had 40 years of rental income.
Yeah.
And I challenge any of you, if you're still young, ask your parents, what did you buy that house for when I was a little baby? And what did you sell it for? And then look up on Zillow, wherever, what it's worth now. These examples occur all the time.
Yep.
Buy stuff and hang on to it.
Love it. Do you own a property management company or several? How does that work in different states and countries?
So I don't own a property management company. I do a lot of, we do management of our own stuff here in Phoenix, because either I'm too slow to get a property manager. I think sometimes when you own the building, you have a more vested interest in doing things officially.
Yep.
I had an AC unit go out. My normal AC company was busy because of the heat, so I got a different company in, and they said, no, it's shot. Here's the quote, $8,700 to get it replaced. And then my own company came on board again, and I said, can you have a look at it? And they said, yeah, the condenser's blown, and they charged what I think is an outrageous $200 to replace it. But it's still working, and it was a $200 repair instead of an $8,700 replacement. And the management company would prefer the replacement because in addition to the fees, they get 10% of anything they charge up. So they would have made an extra $870, and their belief probably would have been that I wouldn't have known any better. So, you know, there's that small aspect. You need people you can trust. But everything that I've got outside of Phoenix, absolutely have property managers for it. I don't want to do the property management or own a property management company because then I'm involved in helping other people build wealth for them. I'd rather buy the property and focus on looking at the next deal, and then let the AC repairman and the leaking roof repairman and let them do their thing.
I love it. Real quick, we're going to take a quick, before you put on another one, Alejandra. Matt, let's do the which would you rather before Dolf leaves here. Every week we put up 2 properties and we put a poll up to see what would you rather own.
Oh, okay.
Or live
Cool.
in, right?
Okay, yeah.
Okay, and this is special for you.
Okay.
These are in New Zealand.
Oh, excellent.
Okay?
I love it.
So we're
yes.
choosing between 2 properties here in New Zealand. First, we've got this one.
Oh my
look at
gosh,
this.
that
This
is a great view. Isn't
This
it?
is
Yes.
number one. Watch out, Dolph. You're right in the
Oh,
front
I'm
of
right
it.
in the middle. Yes, okay. Here, look at that. That is just.
Okay,
over
that's
there.
number one.
Right.
And here's number two. Oh,
my
tough one.
No, it's easy for me.
Okay, well, don't spoil it because you will influence.
Now wait, now
All
you
right?
don't own either of these, right?
They're not actually your
number
properties
one.
yet, right?
And here is number two. All right, this is a classic. This is a classic mountain versus beach. So far, Dolph, I'll tell you, the beach properties are completely beating up the mountain properties. I tend to prefer the mountain properties.
For
but
which
we'll-
reason?
I don't know. There's just something about being in the mountains.
Okay.
I think that there's some solitude. I think that the ocean is kind of like this big giant monster that can swallow you up at any time. You know what I mean?
Well, it's
And
becoming a reality, yeah.
So there's something about the crisp air around pine trees and nature, and I love that. But listen, I love the beach. I mean, either one of those I would take in a heartbeat. But so we'll put a poll out, number one, number two. We'll do that right before Dolph leaves. Will you do me a favor, Dolph? Will you sign this real quick before you take off for whoever is going to be the lucky person, guys? We are right there. We're very close to sending some lucky audience member this book from Dolph. It is a true gift. Incredible. So,
Here we go.
Abe here is is a TTP student, and he says, "Hi, Dolph. Can you go through your mindset on the road to your first deal to break out,
To break out of your shell and buy your first deal?
to go after it? Yeah, to get your first deal done, whether it be a wholesale, whether it be a rental, whether it be a flip, whether it be any of those things. How do you have the confidence? How did you have the confidence at 17 years old to go and sit down at banks and start negotiating with them and say, hey, listen, I want to buy this property? You know what I mean? Like, how do
Okay.
you get that mindset? Did your parents they were like, Dolph, you're the greatest investor of all time. You will be the greatest of all time.
No, my
And since you
parents
were, like,
didn't help
10.
me. My parents
No.
weren't even in the country, I'm afraid to say.
Right. They just dropped you off in Europe.
Well, I
and-
wouldn't say they abandoned me, but they had things that they were doing, and I was left to my
That's
own
abandonment.
devices.
Dolph.
No,
that's exactly
no.
what abandonment is.
But I will say this.
Yes.
I was 35 years old, and I was visiting my parents in Europe. They picked me up from the airport, and my mother said, you know, Dolph, it's not too late. And I looked at my watch thinking, maybe for dinner with an aunt or something.
Right.
I said, what for? She said, to get a job. No, seriously.
How old are you?
I said, 35. I said, why would I want a job? She said, because you don't have a pension plan. Pension
Oh,
being
of course.
a non-American
Yeah,
word
yeah, yeah.
for 401k,
No,
IRA, whatever.
we know it. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And 2 years later, I visited them, and my mother said, you know, maybe you did the right thing.
Maybe.
I said, well, thank you for
You
the
got it.
faith in me, but I'll know you really believe it when you can drop the word maybe from maybe you did the right,
Right,
thing.
yeah.
Like, how about you did the right thing,
Yeah.
you know?
Just make it a statement. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I love it.
But listen, this is a question that's so short, it fit on one line. The others took 2 or 3 lines.
Yep.
But the answer really is, I have a weekend event called The Psychology of Creating Wealth. It's all about mindset.
Right.
And I don't want to invite myself back, but I've had a lot of fun with you guys here. So
yes, I want
if-
you back.
I think if it's all right with you, we'll do a bit more on
Yes.
mindset, because it's an important topic. I wouldn't do it justice by
We'll do a
giving
whole
some
show on it.
bland
Yeah.
answer in a couple of seconds.
Right.
But here's the thing. I believe one of the reasons why this book was quite successful is, unlike every other book on real estate, the other books I've written and most other people's books, it's not a how-to book. This is a why-to book. Because there's a theory that when you understand the why well enough, you'll figure out your own how. Whether the how is through wholesaling or flipping or short-term rentals or long-term rentals or commercial or industrial or hospitality or special, it doesn't matter. You'll figure it out. So part of how I knew this was good is you've got to figure out, why is real estate so good?
Huge.
And most people don't do it. They just think, oh, my uncle said I ought to look at getting a property. I don't know why, but I'll do it to please him. No, figure it out.
Yeah.
And you'll be motivated to get out of bed in the morning and to look at yet another property and have yet another chat with someone.
Love it.
It's
Just
all
figure
great.
that out.
Yeah.
But you're 17 and you knew why you wanted to do this? You knew that you wanted to be wealthy? You knew that you didn't want to just make what an engineer that has a PhD could make? Like, where does that come from? Your parents? If
I
it's not your
always had
parents, it's just always inside you?
Yeah, I always had side hustles. You know, we lived on the Gold Coast in Australia when I was 8, 9, 10. And I set up a shop on the beach, a candy store. I used to buy candy at 1 cent each, and I sold them for 2 cents
Didn't
each.
it get shut down?
Yeah,
They got
shut
you, right?
down. I know. My first
Nice try.
run-in
didn't have a
with the
permit.
authorities, because I didn't have a stinking permit. So instead of getting a permit, I abandoned that business and converted it to a fruit stall because there were no permits required.
What?
Yes,
For
I mean,
fruit?
bizarre, but it's the same with real estate. There are the most, and the fruit wasn't wrapped in anything. The candy was in cellophane,
Right.
and the fruit, anyway.
Yeah.
But rules don't make sense.
Yeah.
But conform to them. I like playing in certain sandpits around the world, and so you have to conform to the rules.
Yeah, but there's certain kids that would go and they would just rather play sports or they play video games or read comics or something like that. You're running from the authorities with a bunch of candy, selling it on the street. You know what I mean? Like, was it just necessity? Was it just that fire inside you? Was it just a hunger inside you?
A hunger,
from
but
early?
for everything. I mean, I'm not recommending this, but my buddy and I would get copper pipes and bash the end flat and drill a little hole in it and get firecrackers at what we call Guy Fawkes, is when we let off fireworks, and thread the cracker down, get the wick, whatever it's called, the fuse out the thing, and put a marble in, and we'd light it, and we'd fire these marbles out to sea, and probably crazily dangerous. It's just as well we didn't have. I also nearly blew my finger off, but that's another thing. So just doing things, you
Sure.
know. And
Is
the
it
challenge
curiosity?
is most people don't do things.
Right.
So they say when you're really old, I know some of you think I'm really old, but when you're really, really old, like in your 90s, apparently you look back on life and you don't regret the things that you did that you shouldn't have done.
Right.
You regret the things you didn't do that
wild.
you could have
Yeah.
done. So go out there, make mistakes,
Yeah.
Don't live life in your comfort zone because it'll be a boring life.
Yeah.
Imagine you've got this great novel, 400 pages, and every night you read the first page and say, I love this first page. I love it so much, I'm just going to read this page. And you never progress through the rest of the... That's how many people lead their lives. They drive the same car to the same route, to the same office, and gossip with the same people at the same water cooler about the same other people that they got. And they do that over and over again. Go to another country. Don't plan it. Don't book a hotel. It's too organized,
Yeah.
random. See who you meet. See what happens. Life's a bit like that.
Love it. Teresa, hey, Dolph, any advice on those who want to be financially free in the next 5 years with $50K a month in passive income?
Yep. Buy one house a year for the next 5 years. And spend a bit of time on it. Don't just say, oh, Dolph said buy one, that one will do, and it's not a very good. Go looking, look every day. Look at 3 or 4 properties. Go online, drive around, go to agents, go to real estate firms, MLS, you name it. And look, become so familiar with it that you know more about the neighborhood than your agent does. And then you'll find a bargain, the deal of the decade. You'll say, why is this so cheap? Then you'll doubt yourself.
Yep.
Well, no one else has bought it. Why should I bet there's something wrong with it? And if a deal sounds too good to be true, it probably is. But don't dismiss it just because it sounds too good to be true, because every now and then there'll be a great deal there.
Love it.
And then buy it, and after 5 years, you'll have 5. Now, you might find 2 in the first year, in which case you'll either shorten the time or you can take the next year off, whichever.
Love it. We're going to save the rest of the questions for the next time we have Dolph on. I'd love to have you on monthly. I really would. I know that you travel a lot, so when you're in town,
Okay.
we would love it. The audience would love it. Getting into the mindset. We'll start there and we'll see how you feel. We won't
well, it's a
commit
matter
long
of how
term,
much
but,
lead time do you need? Because
yeah.
my schedule, I'll know it within 2 weeks of.
Awesome.
Okay.
Number 1 or number 2, Dolph? Which one are you going with?
Oh, where is it? I'm sure it's the biggest challenge.
Number 1 or
number.
number
Oh, the
2?
house.
Yes.
Oh.
Number 1 or number 2?
All right. So for me personally.
Come by the microphone.
For
I
me
can't hear
personally,
you.
it's number 1 because it's by a lake. Sea levels are rising. I read an article yesterday. There's a big shelf down in Antarctica. Where if that
There's the
breaks
sea
off,
monster.
which I think it'll break off, sea levels are going to rise by 63 feet. That is an enormous amount of ice that's locked up there. That property by the ocean, much as I love the sound of the sea and the smell of the sea and walks on the sea,
You and me.
it's getting up there. I've got photos of houses in New Zealand by the ocean that are being swallowed by the sea.
Yep.
It's going to happen more and more. If you want to buy by the ocean, I'm a big fan
You
of
guys
that.
you thought I was crazy.
Big fan.
Yeah.
Buy with an elevation of
Yes.
something like 8 or 10 meters, yards, whatever. And that one's getting a bit close. Plus, isn't that a stunning view?
That one won.
So
They
for
agree
me,
with you.
yeah, that one won.
That's
Oh,
the
no,
one.
excellent.
Look at
But
that.
I tell you what, if I had a friend who owned either of those properties and they said, Dolph, you're condemned to spending a week with us, I would do it with relish. It's
Yes.
just,
Yeah, that's awesome.
And remember, life's all about being experienced. It's not about buying more deals. 100 years from now, no one will care how much real estate you owned, what your passive income was. But did you do any good? Did you have fun? Did you make some friends on the way? You know, that's what it amounts to.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
It's been
you.
a real
All
pleasure.
right.
I
Thank you,
appreciate
guys.
it. I'm going to grab this here.
Guys, Dolph is out of here. Absolutely incredible. Guys, get to 150 likes and we will give away this book. Absolutely. Oh my gosh, that was wonderful. Just starting out, I got 2 buyers on deck yesterday. Here we go. Let's celebrate Javier. Come on. That is awesome. Let's go, Javier. That is a great start. Keep building those buyers. Listen, have a conversation with those buyers and ask them what they're buying. What's your buy box? What's the price? All of those things, right? Are they looking for 2 bedrooms? Are they looking for 3 bedrooms? All of those things. Matt Perry, I have a closing set for tomorrow for a beach lot in Galveston, Texas. $35K profit, bought for $8K and selling for $43,000. Come on. Guys, what do you think of Dolph?
Oh my God.
I just want to mention, so last week we did a training, right? And it was the top 10 secrets of millionaire wholesalers.
Yes.
Now, we didn't coordinate with Dolph, and I don't think this was coincidence, but 2 things that he brought up. And this is secret number 7, which is know why you're doing what you're doing, right? Know why real estate. And secret number, I think it was 10, which was there's good deals in any market, up or down.
That's
right?
it.
Don't worry about the economy, just go get them.
That's it.
I mean, it comes down to principles, right? And then you see people who've been doing it forever and crushing it forever. You know, some of those basic principles, are stand the test of time. I mean, I can't see of any, better proof than that right now.
Before the show, he's like, yeah, I have to, I thought this was just an hour. I have to go negotiate a 14-story Bank of America building right now at 11:30. And I was like, yeah, okay. Like, I'll take 5 minutes from you, as long as we can. Absolutely incredible, guys. 35 more likes. Let's send this out to somebody today. Dolf De Roos signed it. He has a nice little inscription here, and it'll be for somebody. Yo, Brent, do you know how or where I can get a free proof of funds for $100 to $1 billion? I do not. Do you guys?
No, not for that
100
one.
million to $1 billion proof of funds. If you're playing in those games, that's probably a big commercial, and you need to have somebody that has a huge amount of liquid for those deals. All right, and so I have no idea. Listen. Let me explain something about commercial, which that would be a commercial deal. It is not like residential. It's a whole different game. And I wish we would have asked this. Well, Dolph was here because Dolph buys commercial properties all the time. Maybe I'll ask him. Yeah, I'll ask him. Demola. Hi, Brent. How can I increase my contact rate? I'm currently at 1.6 using Mojo and skip tracing from batch, and number is marked as spam. Don't use Mojo caller ID numbers. Don't use that. You could check your caller ID numbers at Caller ID Reputation, but it's expensive. What I would do is I would go into CallRail. CallRail is where we get all our numbers, and make sure that you Google that number before you use it as a caller ID, and make sure that your calls are longer. We did a training on this, Demola. Just look on this YouTube channel on how to get higher contact rates. We did this on this show, 3-4 weeks ago. So there's a bunch of steps there for you. Do we have that, Matt? Do we have a graphic for that? I don't remember.
Reach out to Batch too. They just dropped a webinar on best practices,
Yep.
updated best practices.
Yep.
And they were
Do you know where that's
at? No, I don't have the link for them. But if you reach out to support, I'm sure they'll send it to you.
Two of the tried,
It's on Batch's YouTube.
two of the tried and true,
it?
Brent.
Yeah, it's on
the-
Batch's YouTube.
two of the
Alejandro's
tri-
screaming. Sorry.
Two of the tried and true that you talk about all the time is go through CallRail,
Yep.
right? Get a local number and then
Yep.
swap it out every 150 to 300 dials.
Yep. And make sure that you're getting longer time on the phone. So you're going to have to leave some voicemails early on to start, seasoning your number. And once your number's seasoned, then typically it doesn't get as smacked down by the carriers, the cell phone carriers. Man, Dolf De Roos. I'm telling you, I watched every single one of his videos, watched all of his books. I mean, he was like...
The guy is magic, man. His
Yeah.
energy is through the roof.
I know.
Right
His
after.
energy is just,
Alejandro's over there going,
he,
come on.
He
We got-
lights up. Yeah, he lights up the space. When
It's
he-
amazing.
yeah.
He's a Brent, great name. Look at that picture. I love it. How big is your real estate team? So I've got 2 acquisition managers, a disposition manager, a lead manager as my core team, and then I have a VA, Lisa, that I've worked with for forever, that works with Jackie on the organization, the lead management side, and then I've got 2 callers, 2 texters through callmotivatedsellers.com, and they do my calls and texting. There you go. And there's a breakdown, Brent, on my YouTube channel. Guys, if you have not subscribed to this YouTube channel and you feel like this is getting you closer to your goal, hit the subscribe button. It's a huge benefit to us. The more subscribers that we have, the more that we have exposure, and the more exposure, the more that we can bring in incredible people into our world and help filter them down in live events like this so that you can squad up. I can't tell you how many DMs I've gotten, emails that I've gotten that people have met their business partners, they've met their financial partners, like their money lenders, they've met their people that have like helped them locally in their mentorship just from this live show and Wholesale Hotline. It's absolutely bananas. So hit that subscribe button, and thank you. World Turners. I want to buy my first commercial property in 2023. What's the simplest asset class to get started? My first question is why? Why commercial? You know what I mean? I know that you can't answer, but really dig deep, just like Dolf was talking about, is why commercial versus residential. And then from there, it's just finding how can you find the best deal. I mean, that's all it is. I mean, whether it be office, I probably wouldn't go like restaurant, right? I'd probably go more office space.
I think the focus wouldn't be in the simple asset class. It'd be, is there a value add to it, and what's the extent of maintenance and effort that you want to put into the actual property if you're holding it, right? If you have, for example, a vehicle shop, if you have an office space, the maintenance of it is going to be, very different. So figuring out, how vested you want to be into it, you personally, in terms of time and effort and value, that type of stuff. So I would start looking at that as opposed to just simplicity in the asset class. Office space tends to work well for what I get, executive office spaces.
Also, do 10 wholesale deals first. Remember, freshman year, this is Jerry Norton. I love it, and I'm taking it from him. Thank you, Jerry. I absolutely love it because it makes sense. Freshman year is wholesale. Sophomore year is fix and flip. Yeah. Junior year is rental portfolio. And senior year is commercial and multifamily, okay, and development. So if you haven't done these things, you're trying to go, you're going to senior, it's going to one, you can do it 100%. But are you gonna make a lot? Could there be a lot of mistakes? Could there be a lot of heartache? Could it stop you from taking further action in this business? Sure, I think so.
You could do it. I think you and Jerry were talking about, where you've seen a lot of like the biggest problems occur in people's businesses.
Yeah.
Is when they skip those steps.
100%.
They skip grades. Right?
100%. People go out and they go, "Oh, I bought 15 doors." Where? Elephant's Breath, Texas, or whatever. You know what I mean? And it's like, okay. And then you check in on them a year later, 6 months, 18 months later, and they're like, this is the worst mistake I've ever made in my life. It's absolutely terrible. I've lost all of my money, and I got to get out of real estate. And so a lot of real estate is just about momentum. You know what I mean? It's about the momentum that you keep. And so I want you, first, listen, if you're buying real estate to live off of the cash flow, you are going to get crushed. It is the biggest mistake we make. Oh, I'm going to go and I'm going to lock up this creative deal and it's going to give me $200 of cash flow and I'm going to use that to pay my car or whatever, and then somebody doesn't pay and then you can't pay for your car. Happens all the time. The real estate is long-term money.
Yeah.
It's long-term money. The money, the people that get there the fastest, they take all of their cash flow, they roll it back into other properties or improving the properties that they have. So where do you live? What do you live off of? How do you get out of your 9 to 5? You go wholesale property. You go flip property. I mean, start with wholesaling right now for sure. Especially in this turbulent market, there's no risk.
Build cash flow.
There's no risk.
And not just the cash flow, but it also it builds your experience so that you know the areas that someday when you're ready to start doing it, you know where to buy the rental properties, what kinds of properties. You have the network built up that you need to actually make it happen. So that's why wholesaling is the foundation. In addition to the cash flow, it's all those other things.
Yeah.
One thing that I see happen often too, when people jump into like buying whole too early and whatnot, they don't consider contingencies. An AC unit breaks, now you're out of that cash flow for a year and a half, because you have to buy a new unit and stuff like that. So it's, I mean, I feel like there's some prep work to be had before you actually jump into building a portfolio or the glorified version of being that buy a whole.
Dolph said,
It takes a
go
while.
wholesale 9 properties, keep one of them out of 10.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that's fantastic. It's fantastic. I'm just telling you, you can. It's like an apprenticeship. Like wholesaling is like an apprenticeship, and you can go and you can figure out all the skills, and you can figure out all the connections and the network and how to do everything properly, and you're not taking a huge amount of risk. And then all of a sudden,
risk.
you've replaced your income, so you're doing this business full time. You're able to understand and recognize different potential for different properties because you're talking to all the different buyers that are 10, 15, 20 years more experienced than you, and you get all that experience poured into you through a transaction where you go, hey, listen, I want to sell you this deal, but tell me what you're going to do with it. And then they tell you everything that they're going to do with it, and it's like the greatest experience that you can have, and then all of a sudden you've got that now in your back pocket to pull out when you're ready, when you've built up that bank account, when you've been really, really, really respectful, and you've been a steward of the income that you make, and you're really protecting it and preserving it, and then you go and you buy great properties in great areas. Don't get fooled with the people that are like, oh, I bought 37 doors this year. Where? Where did you buy them? That should be the first question that you ask, okay? Because if it's somewhere where it's like, where? Where is it? It's some tiny town in the middle of Louisiana or something. It's like there's no... All of a sudden, that turns into a big nightmare. Don't do that. Just because you can buy property doesn't mean you should buy property. What you should be doing is building a big, healthy, heavy bank account and buying property in great areas. Dolf De Roos travels the whole world, all over the place, all the time. He lives in Phoenix and buys in Phoenix because this is where he knows he's going to get the best return. You just heard him say it. You get better returns. Even in Phoenix, you get better returns in Scottsdale than you do in the other areas. So what I'm encouraging you to do is just don't get sucked in and seduced by people that say, oh, I'm buying all these units. Oh, I just bought a 50-unit complex in, wherever. And it needs $2 million worth of work, and it doesn't cash flow, and it's going to be a nightmare. Like, just buying good areas.
It's also important,
especially now when it's a down market.
Set your standards right on the stuff that you want to buy. I like the fact that he had 5 key points to picking up the stuff that he looks at. I mean, he was looking at location, cash and cash return, depreciation, internal ROI, and then simple rental.
That's it.
Like, keep that stuff in mind, and you're gonna have a good navigator for what you want to take on and keep in as a portfolio. So
If you get started in those other areas, trying to skip over wholesale, the mistakes are so much more expensive.
You lose everything.
If you get tied down in a fix and flip or multiple, the mistakes are expensive. Wholesaling, the risk is hardly anything.
Yep.
Compared to what you can make.
That's it. Love it. Raph, take this one.
Brent, how do the conversations differ when switching from SFR to commercial? I think at the end of the day, you're looking for the same stuff. Look at value add when you're looking at commercial, right? Can you increase the value of that property somehow, some way? When it comes to commercial stuff, it's not just about nails and hammers. It's not just about adding paint or fixing the roof, right? You can switch the use of the property and increase the values of that stuff. So there's a lot more advanced methods of structuring deals that play into it. But as far as a conversation, we see it all the time. I was talking to John a couple of days ago. John, he's a good friend of ours, and he does a lot of commercial stuff here in town. And he's having conversations with a lot of people who just want to get out of it. They're older, they're in their 80s. They're having, headaches on because they don't want to do the maintenance on the properties. And believe it or not, but the pains that those people are going through are very similar to the ones that people with single family have. Just the structure of the deal has got to be different. So if that makes sense.
And income. I mean, commercial's based on the income of the property.
Yeah.
Single family is appraised, like you understand it based on comps. And they use that because I bought this building here, and they use comparables, but that was just because I am officing here. That I'm like using this, right? If this was if I were buying this property as just rental income, they would be looking at how much do I get in rent every single month to determine the value of that property. All right, Dylan Miracle. I hope that's your real name. That's amazing. 22 years old, looking to build big wealth through real estate. What is the simplest way to explain the path to get there? Wholesale, fix and flip, in this order: wholesale, fix and flip, rental portfolio, and then you get into development, multifamily, and commercial. That's the steps. The simplest way is this, Dylan. Go driving today. Go driving, and if you can, get the Deal Machine app, okay? Dealmachine.com, and get that app and use the coupon code TTP. There you go. And make sure that you get that app. You drive around. When you see an ugly house, you click the button on, you'll see it. It'll pop right up on your phone. Click the button, and it'll give you all the information, right? And then what I want you to do is call them. You can pull that information, and I would get their phone number from batchskiptracing.com, and you get all that information, and then you call them. And if you need if you need to know what to say to them, Dylan, then just go to TTP Insider. I'm giving you three, boom, boom, boom here. Deal Machine, Batch Skip, TTPinsider.com. And download all the scripts, download all the tools, download all those things. And you literally just call them up and ask them when they plan on selling that property. And that's how you start this business. That's how you start building momentum, and do that every single day to every single ugly property that you can. And then there's an unbelievable amount of lists that you can pull and people that you can go after. Subscribe to this channel. It's all on here. Make sure that you're subscribed and get all that information. And then just start taking action, brother. Just start taking action. But learn the game. Learn the game. Because what happens is we go out there and we have conversations with people that own properties in areas that we shouldn't be buying and holding these things forever. You got to imagine, do I want to buy and hold this property forever? That should be the mentality. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I read it this morning, and I kicked myself because of all the properties that I've ever owned. If I had owned them still, just bananas, absolutely bananas. But I was stupid. And the reason I'm so passionate about this, guys, is I've done this. I have screwed this up. I have lost everything because I was stupid and I didn't follow this instructions. All right? Lower your risk until you really understand this game. Make a boatload of money and then decide what you want to do. And I think, listen, if you never want to do a fix and flip, I think it's inevitable that you will, and it's a next step up. But if you just want to wholesale to put it into rental portfolio like I'm doing, that's fine too. You know, I just think understanding fix and flip gives you a little bit of perspective on what things will, for your rental portfolio, what to expect with repairs to your rental portfolio.
I started with fix and flip, man. I made some massive mistakes in the first couple of properties, and it hurt. I mean, I was in a decent position financially because I sold another business, but I mean, taking a hit on stuff, you just don't know when you know what you don't know, and I think I was trying to run when I couldn't even crawl yet.
Yep.
Brent and I went from being agents to buying rentals and lost our asses.
All of it.
All of it. It lost everything.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah. By the way, and it's funny, what we see now is like people, because they want to tell everybody that they own all these doors. So they're just buying shit properties in bad areas just for the sake of saying they own all these properties.
And when the tide goes out, when the tide goes out, everything's exposed.
You know one person that I'm looking at, and I'm pretty happy that I'm going to have him over at the meetup tonight, but it's Luke Rutman.
Yes.
Yes.
You got the Viking?
Viking boys are in the house. We're going to do it podcast style, so it's going to be fun. But he's working a really cool model when it comes to rentals and in his portfolio. He's niching out Airbnbs in very specific locations, and he has this whole vibe to it.
Multifamily.
That's definitely, and he's developing 10 units. And so
he's developing like 50 units right now.
Yeah, so it's definitely intentional, right? The way that he's going about building that whole thing. So, I mean, I think that's the best approach, really.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah.
He's got an incredible rental portfolio. Only buys in good areas and understands. And I think right now he's already at like over $20,000 a month in passive cash flow.
Yeah.
He's like 33 or 34. You know what I mean? They make an incredible amount on their flips. They make an incredible amount from their wholesaling, and he still cold calls every day.
Yeah.
He was the first. He was my first guy. He was my first like acquisition manager, right? And so, yeah, he's just gone bananas. Anyway, all of them do. Anyway, hey, hi. Please explain the phrase "the deal of a century happens every week." I am actively wholesaling. Am I missing this deal every week? So far, but it'll happen. It's a mindset, Abe. That's all it is. It's a mindset. So you got to be looking for this thing. And I'm telling you, it might not be every week, but at least once a quarter. I mean, we get a 6-figure deal.
You talk a lot about focus and consistency is how you engineer good luck.
Yeah.
And that's really
Say that again.
focus and consistency is
Yep.
how you engineer good luck and good timing.
And Dolf called it today. Dolf said, it's boring.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's
Repetition,
boring.
repetition.
Repetitious boredom.
Hit the nail on the
Repetitious
head with
boredom.
that.
Talking to people all the time is boring. Looking at deals all the time. Well, I think it's exciting. I really do. But like doing the same things over and over and over and building that consistency gets boring. Fall in love with it. Have fun the rest of the time. You know what I mean? But if you can focus a couple hours a day, if you're doing it part-time, and love real work, like not just fumbling around and going on and putting education into your brain, like actually being active. And it's very simple in our business. All we have to do is pick up the phone. All we have to do is pick up the phone, call on a property owner that owns an ugly house, and have a quality conversation and find out 4 things: the condition of the property, their timeline to sell, their motivation to sell, and their price. And then you've got a pre-qualified property owner and that you can find out, are you able to solve their problem? And then boom, you get a deal. And then you just do it over and over and over again. It's absolutely incredible. And then you build up a war chest and you buy the best properties when they go on sale. Remember, 3 to 5 times in our adult lifetime are we going to be able to take advantage of a recession. That's when the rich get richer, right?
They're
This is
getting
when the
ready to go
deals
on
come
sale
out.
right now.
Huh?
They're getting ready to go on sale right now.
They already are.
Yeah.
You should see this deal I'm negotiating. It's absolutely bananas. Jessica, where do I get funds to purchase my first multifamily? I found a property, ARV 1.4 million, needs 110,000 reno, and they're asking 800,000. Can you wholesale 14-unit apartments, or is more than 4? No, it's all the same, Jessica. I'm telling you, you should go in and watch some of the podcasts that I've done with people around the country that have Natasha. Natasha Turner is a great interview that you should watch. She is on this channel a couple years ago, and she did an incredible deal on a multifamily. But there's no difference. It's just negotiating, getting the right price, right? And then ask yourself, okay, well, if you go and raise those funds and you buy that property and you get that done and you go through all of the red tape to get something like that renovated, especially if it's rented out and everything, is this going to take up the next year of your life? Or can you just lock that thing up, sell it, make 100, 150,000, see what they do with it, watch from afar, stand on their shoulders, look at what they're doing, see how they did it to make sure that it's done right, and get the experience and find another one? Here we go, guys. Hit that like button. Let's finish this thing out, and then Alejandra's going to pick somebody to send this book to, or she's going to keep it. She's looking at me
I
with
hope she
greedy
picks
eyes.
me. I hope she picks me.
She's not going to pick you for sure.
I'll buy it for it.
She's not going to pick you. Liana, in your opinion, which software is best for texting that's affordable? I guess it just depends on what affordable means. I mean, you could text from your phone if you want. That's probably the most affordable.
Yeah, it's
Most
gonna be
affordable. I think
right?
the best is probably launch control.
Launch control is the one that's.
I don't know if
gets
there's like
results.
Text Magic, if they still do it anymore, or some of those, you know, 1, 2, 3
I-
texts or whatever the heck they are.
Well, I looked around a bunch of them. Just the results were not there. You're
Right.
spending less, but you're kind of spinning your wheels.
You're not getting it.
Yeah, they're not
Yeah.
being delivered and that sort of thing.
That's awesome.
Launch control, and then they have, I think, a $400 a month plan or something.
Awesome.
I think they do. Yeah.
Yeah. Peter, what is the best way to find buyers? I love it, Peter. Go to ttpinsider.com. I'll answer your question, but it's just, I'm telling you guys, this has sold more deals, I think, than any other download ever in the existence of real estate investing and wholesale. All right? The cash buyer pack that we have in TTP Insider is going to show you exactly how to do it. But Peter, we have a ton of videos on it here. But basically, if you just want to know like active buyers right now, Batch Leads is fantastic. Batch Leads, you could literally pull up the cash buyers right now and get that, get all of the ones that are active within the last 30 days. 60 days is probably, you know, I would probably go back 90 days at the furthest. That's as far back as you want to go because the market has shifted as of June 15th. Okay? So go back 90 days. And look for the cash buyers that have purchased it. They're non-owner occupied. They are cash purchases, and go and do some research and find out who those people are. Second way is just go to Zillow, go find all the flipped properties that are on there in that zip code of the property that you're trying to sell, and call the real estate agents. Not the ones that are on Zillow, but the ones that it says listed by. You got to find it. It's right underneath the property description, and you got to Google their info to get their phone number. And call them up and see if their clients are looking for more properties in the area.
The number one thing that's working for us right now is going to Batch Leads and pulling a 5-mile radius of the buyers around the property, the subject property that you have. Pull a 5-mile radius of it, look at everybody who's bought cash, skip trace that, and then we hit them just like sellers. So we'll send out text messaging campaigns through launch control.
Awesome. Master Jair, hey Brent, how do you feel about buying a house with solar panels? It depends on if it's owned or leased. So you got to find out if it's owned or leased. I would say, 90% are leased?
Yeah.
90% of those properties are leased. So it just adds to the monthly cost. And remember, we are not a price society. We're a payment society. And so when you add an extra $150, $200 in that solar lease, yeah, it helps with the utility bill, but not as much as you think. And then people just don't want to get roped into something that they have to pay another 20, 30 years for this solar lease. So it's a lot harder. They are a lot harder to dispo if it's got a leased solar. If it's owned, fantastic. I mean, it's an asset for sure. It's not a dollar for dollar asset. It's not like you're like, oh, I just spent $40,000 to put, solar panels on my house and it's worth $50,000 more. It's not worth tremendously more. I don't even know how much appraisers give for it. Like maybe 10% of what it costs to put on there. I don't know. That'd be a good question. If we have an appraiser on here, hit us up with some knowledge. But let's give this away. Let's give this away, Alejandra. Let's go. We're pretty close. That's right. Let's give away Dolph's book. Incredible book talking about the why. And he says it's not about the how, but that's not true.
There's instruction in there.
There's some instruction.
A lot of instruction.
Who's it going to be?
I'm not gonna disagree with the man to his face.
No. Who's it
Not
going to be?
the first time on the show. We'll never get him back. But I love it. I love that he's a big thinker. I love that he does big deals. I love that he's out there and he truly wants to serve. He truly wanted to be on here. Truly wanted to come and pour into the younger generation of people coming up and anybody that is looking to get into real estate investing. But, a lot of the younger generation doesn't know who Dolf De Roos is. And, Javier! Ooh. Holy cow, come on! Look at you, Javier. You didn't expect that when you woke up this morning. Pow-pow!
Yeah, thanks a lot, Handra.
Awesome. Well, that's it. Come on in, Handra. Come on in, Mike. Come on, Jesse. Come on, Daniel. Come on, Matt. Hey, guys, we absolutely love you guys. We support you. We encourage you to go out there and take action every single day on behalf of Raphael, Mike, Daniel, Matt, and Handra. Look at those eyes. Show them off. There we go. Oh, nice.
Wow.
We get requests to see Handra's outfits, so there you go.
Nice.
I love you guys. Remember, keep your house clean. Your actual house and this house, right? Protect your health and increase your value to the world, and you'll live an incredible life. I'll see you next week. Love you.